"Sir, could you hold me for a moment?" Patrick Miles turned toward the small voice, surprised. The snowfall was thick that Christmas Eve fluffy flakes drifted in heavy curtains across the front steps of the East Newark Community Center. Lights twinkled faintly through the frost-covered windows, but the scene was otherwise quiet, save for the muffled shuffling of people waiting in line for donated meals. Standing before him was a little black girl, no more than 7 years old, bundled in a faded pink coat with a broken zipper. Her braids were tucked beneath a wool hat that sagged on one side, and her gloved hands trembled at her sides. She stood alone in the snow, chin up, dark brown eyes wide and unblinking. Patrick blinked, uncertain he'd heard her right. "What did you say?" she repeated, more softly now. "Could you hold me? Just for a moment." Her request hung in the air, quiet but heavier than the snowfall, heavier than the sharp December wind that bit at his cheeks. Patrick, dressed in a custom wool overcoat and black cashmere scarf, felt like a man out of Placian interloper in this cold, worn part of the city. This was supposed to be a brief appearance. Show up, smile, shake hands with a few volunteers, take a photo handing out a turkey, be gone before the cold seeped into his bones. But this little girl, she'd shattered that plan with a single sentence. He crouched slightly, so they were closer in height. "What's your name?" "Anna," she said. Her voice trembled, but her eyes didn't leave his. Patrick hesitated. "Where's your family, Anna?" "My Nana's inside," she said. "She's not feeling good. We came for the food drive." He nodded slowly. She looked up at him again, her gaze filled with something that unsettled him, not desperation, but longing. "I saw you hug that boy earlier," she added. "He fell and scraped his knee. You helped him up, then gave him a hug." Patrick remembered vaguely. It had been instinct steady, the kid, smile for the cameras. The boy had clung to him for a second longer than expected, but he'd pulled away and carried on. Anna took a breath and said, "If my dad were still alive, I think he would have hugged me like that." If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this moment, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another powerful story like this one. And just like that, Patrick Miles, the billionaire who once declared emotions as inefficient distractions, felt his carefully constructed defenses tremble. Behind him, his assistant Lindsay was already murmuring into her phone. "He's running behind schedule." "Yes, I know. The driver's waiting." He ignored her. Patrick looked back at Anna. Her lips were chapped. Snowflakes clung to her lashes. Her jacket had a tear at the sleeve that someone had tried to sew. She didn't have to say she was cold. It was written all over her. Yet she stood tall. "Anna," he began, unsure of where the sentence would end. But she didn't wait. She stepped forward, placed her arms gently around his waist, and laid her head against his chest. Patrick stiffened. The instinct to recoil out of fear, uncertainty, reputation flashed through him, but he didn't move. He let her stay there, and after a long moment, his arms came up and held her. It was quiet. Snow drifted down between them and the rest of the world. The line of people waiting at the door kept shifting in place, bundled against the wind. But here, in this small circle of warmth, Patrick remembered something. Something he hadn't allowed himself to feel since the funeral. Something he thought had been buried with his wife and daughter. He felt human. Anna didn't cry. She didn't shiver. She just stood there, trusting. Her heartbeat was fast, like a small bird trapped under his coat. He could feel it. When she finally pulled back, she looked up at him and whispered, "Thank you." He nodded, unable to speak. "Would you like to meet my Nana?" she asked. "I'd like that," he said quietly. She led him through the crowded hallway into the small gymnasium where tables of food were lined up, and volunteers handed out coats and canned goods. In the corner, an older black woman sat on a folding chair, wrapped in a knit blanket. Her eyes, tired and watery, lit up when she saw Anna. "Nana, this is Mr. Patrick," Anna said. "He's the one who gave me a hug." The woman struggled to her feet, reaching out. "Oh, sir, I hope she didn't bother you." "She didn't," Patrick said gently. "She reminded me of something I forgot I needed." The woman's face softened. "That child has more heart than most people twice her age." Patrick turned to Anna. Are you both headed home now? We usually take the bus, her grandmother said, coughing lightly. Just a few stops. It's Christmas Eve, Patrick said. Let me take you. We can get dinner too. My treat. Oh no, we couldn't, the woman started. Yes, you can, Patrick interrupted. You're not a project. You're people. And I'd be honored. Anna beamed. Not the kind of smile that bursts, but the kind that simmers deep, quiet, and sincere. As they stepped out into the falling snow, Patrick felt something lift inside him like a door cracked open for the first time in years. And as Anna slipped her hand into his, he realized that what he'd just given wasn't charity. It was connection, and it had saved him just as much as it had warmed her. The car ride was quiet at first. Patrick sat in the back seat of his Mercedes-Benz S-Class, the cream leather interior glowing softly under the dashboard lights. Across from him, Anna sat upright beside her grandmother, Evelyn Carter, who was still coughing gently into a napkin she'd tucked into her coat pocket. Outside the window, the city was blanketed in white. Christmas lights blinked in apartment windows and tiny corner stores, their cheer muted by layers of snow. A boy dragged a sled down a silent street. A couple leaned into each other under a flickering street lamp. The world was cold but not unkind. Patrick glanced sideways. Anna stared out the window, her breath fogging the glass. She wasn't talking. She didn't fidget or ask questions. But she was watching everything eyes wide, alert, soaking in every detail as though the world outside might disappear if she blinked too long. You're very quiet, Patrick said gently. Anna turned to him and shrugged. I like to listen. Evelyn chuckled, her voice still rasped by age and cold. That's true. She's always listening. Too much for her own good, sometimes. Patrick smiled faintly. That's a good quality. Most people are too busy talking. The driver pulled up in front of a modest family diner at the corner of Belmont and 9th Belton Diner, a warm, chrome and neon throwback with a spinning peppermint sign and foggy windows. Patrick had eaten there once, years ago, when he still remembered how to be spontaneous. He stepped out first and held the door for Anna and Evelyn. The scent of grilled cheese, bacon, and fresh coffee wrapped around them like a welcome mat. Inside, the place was half empty, dimly lit, the kind of setting where people found comfort without expectation. A waitress in her 60s, with a reindeer pin on her apron, approached. Table for 3? Patrick nodded. Something quiet, please. She led them to a booth in the back. The seats were old vinyl, patched in places, and the tabletop had been scrubbed so many times the laminate had faded in spots. Anna slid in beside her grandmother. Patrick sat across from them, removing his gloves and setting them neatly beside the menu. He noticed Evelyn eyeing the prices on the board. Please, he said gently, order whatever you like. Evelyn hesitated. We don't need anything fancy, sir. A bowl of soup would be just fine. Patrick caught the waitress's eye. 3 roast beef dinners, with mashed potatoes, gravy, and green beans, and a side of cornbread. For dessert, pumpkin pie. Anna blinked. That's a lot. It's Christmas Eve, Patrick replied. That's when you're supposed to eat too much. Evelyn smiled softly. Thank you. It's been a long time since anyone made a fuss over us. You deserve it, Patrick said. There was a pause. Then Anna asked, Are you really a millionaire? Patrick laughed, not mockingly, but with genuine amusement. I'm a little beyond that now. She tilted her head. So, you can buy anything? In a way, but not everything worth having can be bought. Anna nodded like she understood. Patrick wasn't sure she did, but she was trying. The waitress brought their meals, steaming and generous. Anna's eyes widened at the size of her plate. Evelyn murmured a blessing under her breath before they began. They ate slowly, the silence between bites filled with warmth. For Patrick, the food triggered an old Memoria Sunday lunch decades ago, with his late wife, Marcia, and their daughter, Claire. Roast beef was her favorite. He felt a pang in his chest but didn't let it show. After the meal, Anna leaned back with a satisfied sigh. That was the best thing I've ever eaten. You've got good taste, Patrick said. The waitress returned with their pie. As she set the plates down, she smiled at Anna. You have a sweet tooth, don't you, darling? Anna grinned shyly. Only on holidays. Evelyn dabbed her mouth with her napkin and turned to Patrick. I still don't understand why you're doing this, sir. We're just Regular people. Poor people. Patrick leaned back, thoughtful. I've spent most of my life thinking I could build a wall high enough to keep the world out. I thought money could replace loss, or at least cover it. But today, your granddaughter asked me for something I hadn't felt in years. She reminded me that hearts don't forget, no matter how much time passes. Evelyn's eyes softened. That's the truth. Anna looked between them, not entirely following but feeling the weight of their words. Patrick cleared his throat. Do you live nearby? Evelyn nodded. 2 blocks east, in the old Kensington flats. That building's not safe in winter, Patrick said, frowning. They shut the heating off early last year, didn't they? Evelyn didn't respond. I'd like to help, Patrick said. With what? Evelyn asked cautiously. With whatever you need, he said. Better housing, groceries, medical care, school for Anna. Evelyn's posture stiffened. We're not looking for charity. Patrick held her gaze. And I'm not offering any. I'm offering connection, from one family to another. No strings, just kindness. Evelyn didn't answer right away. Her eyes welled slightly, but she blinked them clear. I think we could use a little of that this Christmas. Anna reached across the table and touched Patrick's hand. Does that mean we're friends now? She asked. Patrick looked at her, his voice catching. I'd like that very much. Outside, the snow had thickened, blanketing the city in white silence. But inside that booth, 3 people sat in a warmth that no fireplace could replicate. Something had begun, not just a friendship, not just a gesture, but a shift, a crack in the old armor, a space for healing. And as they walked back out into the cold, Patrick didn't feel like he was walking away from anything anymore. He was walking towards something. It had been years since Patrick Miles had driven through the Kensington district without bulletproof windows or a security detail trailing 2 cars behind. But that night, as his sedan rolled past cracked sidewalks and shuttered corner stores, he didn't feel afraid. He felt responsible. Anna rested her head against her grandmother's shoulder, the rhythm of the road gently rocking her toward sleep. Evelyn sat quietly, watching the city blur by through the frost-rimmed window. Patrick, seated across from them, remained lost in thought, his eyes on the snow that swirled like ghostly confetti beyond the glass. They pulled up to the apartment building, a decaying 5-story structure whose red bricks were stained with decades of soot and sorrow. The entrance light flickered weakly. Paint peeled from the doorframe. A broken tricycle leaned against a railing dusted with snow. This is us, Evelyn said, with a faint sigh. Patrick stepped out first, waving off his driver. I'll walk you in. Evelyn looked at him with a tinge of surprise but said nothing. Inside, the hallway smelled of old radiator steam and forgotten holidays. Patrick wrinkled his nose but didn't show it. Anna, more awake now, tugged at his sleeve and whispered, It's not always like this. Sometimes it smells like cookies. He smiled at her. Cookies would have been nice. Their apartment was on the 3rd floor, and the elevator had been out of service since last winter, Evelyn explained, apologetic. Patrick helped carry a bag of canned food up the stairs, careful not to let her see how winded he was when they reached the landing. Inside, the unit was small, 1-bedroom, a kitchenette, and a bathroom the size of a closet. But it was clean, neat, lived in. There were old photographs framed with love, crocheted doilies on every surface, and the smell of peppermint tea on the stove. Anna set her coat aside and retrieved a small tin from under the couch cushion. We were saving this for Christmas, she said, offering him a crumbling sugar cookie shaped like a snowman. Patrick took it, moved beyond words. Evelyn eased into her armchair with a groan. This place ain't much, but it's home. Patrick looked around. The wallpaper peeled in one corner. The radiator hissed with a stutter. A crack ran down the ceiling like a scar. How long have you lived here? He asked. Since Anna was born. Before that, I lived across town, but the rent went up faster than my knees could handle. She chuckled dryly. Patrick sat on the edge of the worn loveseat. I meant what I said earlier. I want to help. Evelyn turned to him, her expression more serious now. And I appreciate that. But you should know, this isn't a one-night story. We're not just a charity moment. I know. She's all I have left, Evelyn said, nodding toward Anna. Her mama died from an infection 2 weeks after giving birth. Her daddy got caught in the wrong place one night. Wrong color, wrong assumptions. Patrick's chest tightened. I raised Anna the best I could, she continued. Kept her fed, taught her right, but I've got a bad lung and a tired heart, and some days I wonder how long I've got left. You're not alone anymore, Patrick said. Evelyn looked at him, not with gratitude but with wary hope. Words like that, she murmured, don't mean much around here, but coming from you, maybe they mean a little more. Anna had curled up on the rug with a picture book. Patrick watched her, the way her lips moved slightly as she read silently, her fingers tracing the illustrations. She's brilliant, he said. Curious, brave. She's her mama's daughter. Patrick nodded, then glanced down at the cookie in his hand. He hadn't taken a bite. I lost someone too, he said after a long pause. My daughter, Claire. Evelyn's expression softened. I'm sorry. She was 11. A car accident. A distracted driver and a yellow light. Evelyn's voice lowered. No parent should outlive their child. Patrick looked up, eyes glassy. After she died, I stopped letting people in. I thought if I just worked harder, made more money, I could outrun the grief. But it's always waiting at the end of the day, Evelyn said, her voice gentle. He nodded. Until tonight, I didn't think I'd ever feel anything again. Anna looked up from her book just then. Mr. Patrick? Yes? If you had a daughter, does that make you a daddy? He hesitated, caught off guard. I suppose it does. Anna's eyes searched his. Even if she's gone? Patrick exhaled. Yes, always. She smiled. Then maybe you could be a little bit of a daddy to me too. Evelyn looked stunned. Anna. But Patrick wasn't stunned. He felt something click like a lock opening after years of silence. He crossed the room, knelt beside Anna, and took her small hand in his. I'd be honored, he said. There was a long silence. Not heavy, not awkward, just full. Later, as he stood to leave, Evelyn walked him to the door. You sure about this? She asked. No, he said honestly. But I know I can't walk away. Evelyn looked at him long and hard. Then she extended her hand. Then welcome to the family. Man. Outside, the snow still fell thick. Patrick stepped back into the car, a cookie in one hand and a heart that felt less hollow. As the driver pulled away, Patrick glanced at his reflection in the dark window. He didn't see the billionaire. He saw a man beginning again. The following morning brought a rare quiet to the city. Snow blanketed every rooftop and muffled every sound. From the floor-to-ceiling windows of Patrick's penthouse overlooking the Hudson, the skyline shimmered in white. But his thoughts were elsewhere 3 floors up, in a modest apartment without heat, where an old woman with a tired heart and a girl with brave eyes had changed his life. He sat at his breakfast table, a perfectly arranged plate of eggs, avocado, and smoked salmon in front of him untouched. His assistant, Lindsay, stood nearby, tablet in hand. You're due at the firm at 10, then lunch with the board. After that, I'm not going, he interrupted without looking up. Lindsay blinked. Not going where, sir? To any of it. She lowered the tablet. Is this about the girl? Patrick looked at her now. Her name is Anna. And yes, Lindsay hesitated. She'd worked for Patrick for 12 years. She'd seen him fire CEOs without flinching, restructure entire departments with a shrug. But this quiet man, seated in a robe with his breakfast cold, this was someone new. Cancel everything, he said. And call Mason Housing Group. I want a list of available units within a 5-block radius of the Kensington building. 2-bedroom minimum. Elevator access. Lindsay opened her mouth, then closed it. Understood. Later that day, Patrick stepped into a small real estate office sandwiched between a laundromat and a liquor store. He wore a simple coat and scarf. No entourage, no photographer, just purpose. I'm looking to rent an apartment nearby, he told the agent, a startled young man behind the desk. Furnished. Available immediately. For yourself? The agent asked, eyebrows raised. Number for someone who needs it more. By late afternoon, Patrick stood in the doorway of Unit 4C, in a freshly renovated building on Madison and 6th. The floors were new laminate, the windows double glazed. The heat hummed quietly from the vents. He touched the wall, half expecting it to collapse under his fingers, but it held. He left the key with the front desk and called for his car. By 5 o'clock, he was knocking on the worn wooden door of Evelyn and Anna's apartment. Evelyn opened it, surprised to see him. "Mr. Patrick, we didn't expect you back so soon. I brought something," he said. Anna appeared from behind the couch, smiling. "Is it cookies again?" Patrick grinned. "Better. Come with me." They bundled up quickly, Evelyn skeptical but curious. The three of them walked the 4 blocks in quiet. The sun was setting behind the buildings, casting long orange shadows on the snow. At the new building, Patrick led them up the stairs and stopped in front of Unit 4C. "This is yours," he said. Evelyn blinked. "Excuse me? I leased it for a year. Heat, water, everything's covered. I had it furnished this morning." Evelyn stepped back. "Mr. Miles, we can't accept this." "You can," he said gently, "because it's not charity. It's an investment. In safety, in dignity, in the future." Anna looked up at her grandmother. "Can we see it?" Evelyn hesitated, then nodded. Inside, Anna let out a breathless gasp. The apartment glowed with soft lighting and the scent of pine. A small artificial tree stood in the corner, already decorated. There were clean beds, thick blankets, a pantry stocked with staples, and a basket of books and toys waiting by the window. Anna wandered from room to room like she was floating. Evelyn clutched the edge of the counter, eyes misting. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Why go this far for us?" Patrick took a long breath. "Because I've been on the other side. I've lived in silence. I've watched life move past me, and because I made a promise." Evelyn looked at him, puzzled. "To your granddaughter," he said. "When she asked me to hold her, she asked for more than comfort. She asked to matter. I can't undo what the world took from her, but I can make sure it never takes again." Tears filled Evelyn's eyes. She didn't wipe them away. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. Patrick offered a small smile. "You don't have to say anything." Anna came running back into the living room. "There's a window in my room that looks out at the church tower. I can see the bell. Looks like you've got a new view," Patrick said. She nodded, then suddenly became serious. "Will you come visit us here?" "If you'll have me," he replied. Anna reached out and took his hand. "Then it's a promise." And in that tiny moment, that simple gesture, Patrick felt it again. The weight of connection, the silent, sacred bond of a promise, made with no paperwork, no contract, just trust. As he left them that evening, the snow had picked up again, swirling gently beneath the streetlights. He walked slowly, his breath clouding in front of him, his hands in his pockets, but his heart surprisingly light. Back at his car, his driver asked, "Home, sir?" Patrick paused. Then, looking at the soft-lit window 4 stories up, he said, "Not yet. Let's drive a little. Because some promises take time to understand. And some names, Anna, Evelyn, carry more meaning than anything on a corporate ledger." Word travels fast in neighborhoods like Kensington. By the next morning, whispers fluttered through corner stores, bus stops, and school gates like paper caught in the wind. They say Patrick Miles bought a place for that Carter girl and her grandma. The billionaire, the Wall Street one, saw his car outside. Sleek black Mercedes, don't make a sound. For Anna, life had changed overnight. Her new room was warm. Her books stayed dry. Her bed no longer creaked under her weight. And for the first time in her young memory, she had a place where her fingers didn't freeze while brushing her teeth. Evelyn, however, remained cautious. As grateful as she was, she had lived long enough to know that people didn't often give without wanting something back, not men in suits, not billionaires, not anyone with power. But Patrick hadn't called since he left the night before. No camera crews, no news stories, no interviews, just silence, and, perhaps, respect. That same morning, Patrick sat at his office on the 43rd floor of Miles and Keene Holdings, staring out across a city he had once conquered and now viewed with entirely different eyes. Lindsay stepped in with a manila folder. "Morning, sir. Legal reviewed the lease transfer for 4C. Everything's in place. You also have an invitation to the mayor's New Year's benefit, and—" "Decline it," Patrick said without turning. "All of it." She paused. "Sir? I want to meet with Child Protective Services." Lindsay blinked. "Excuse me? I want to know who's responsible for the oversight in that district." Why Evelyn Carter, an elderly woman with a medical condition, has been raising a child without any support. I want names, records, everything. Lindsay swallowed. Yes, sir. Patrick turned from the window. If we're going to help them, we do it right. Quietly, but thoroughly. Oh. Across town, Anna stood near the steps of her new school, Eastview Elementary. She clutched her new backpack, a gift from Patrick left quietly on her bed the night before, and stared up at the tall red brick building. Don't let anyone tell you you don't belong, Evelyn had whispered as they left that morning. You walk in like you've got roots in that floor. But roots took time. As she stepped inside, the hallway chatter dimmed. New faces turned, some friendly, some indifferent, a few judging, because kids, even young ones, could sense difference before they understood it. Anna kept her head high. Her new teacher, Miss Dorsey, greeted her with a warm smile. Welcome, Anna, we're happy to have you. Anna smiled politely, but her eyes searched the room. She found an empty desk near the window. The boy beside her desk, Jamal, leaned over as she unpacked her pencils. Are you really the girl that got adopted by that billionaire guy? He whispered. I'm not adopted, Anna said calmly. We're just friends. But he bought you a house. That's not normal. Anna looked at him evenly. Neither is kindness, but it still happens. Jamal didn't know what to say to that. At lunch, she sat alone. Not because no one invited her, but because the cafeteria noise overwhelmed her. The newness, the movement, the invisible pressure of being the girl from the story. She opened her lunchbox, 2 turkey sandwiches, sliced apples, and a handwritten note from Evelyn. Smile at least 3 times today. It keeps people guessing. She smiled once. Meanwhile, back at Miles and Keene, Patrick scrolled through his calendar and made a rare personal call to an old friend, Reverend Malcolm Ward, a retired minister who now ran a community support network. I need your help, Patrick said. Now that's a sentence I never expected from you, Malcolm replied, laughing. I'm serious. There's a little girl, smart, strong. She's alone, even with family. I want her to have more opportunity, stability. Malcolm's voice softened. You thinking of something long-term? I'm thinking of legacy, Patrick said. Not the kind printed in Forbes, the kind written in someone's life. That's the only kind that matters. Patrick's voice lowered. Can you meet me at her school tomorrow? Of course. That night, Anna sat cross-legged on the living room floor, sketching a house with flowers in the window boxes. Evelyn sipped warm tea, watching her. He came into our life like a snowstorm, Evelyn murmured. Anna glanced up. Is that good? Sometimes, Evelyn said, smiling. Sometimes snow covers everything that's broken. Gives the world a fresh start. Anna returned to her drawing, her crayon moving slowly. Do you think he'll stay? She asked softly. Evelyn didn't answer right away. I think, when someone sees you, truly sees you, they don't forget. And Patrick Miles? That man saw you like you were shining. Anna didn't smile, but her fingers pressed the crayon more confidently. The house she drew had lights in every window, and for the first time, she colored them all in. Warm yellow, bright orange, no empty rooms. And in one window, she drew a man with a scarf. Just a shape, but a promise too. A promise that kindness, when given freely, ripples outward into schools, offices, memories, and hearts. Eastview Elementary stood like a weathered fortress against the cold, its chipped stone columns echoing stories of decades past. Patrick Miles leaned against the wrought iron fence, scarf pulled high, gloves tucked into his coat pockets. Few recognized him in this part of town, especially without his usual entourage or tailored suits. And that's exactly how he wanted it. He'd arrived early, choosing to watch the children spill into the schoolyard, boots crunching over icy pavement, jackets too big or too small. Their laughter mingled with the whistle of wind, and Patrick couldn't help but feel a pang of envy. Somewhere in that blur of bright backpacks and swinging mittens was Anna. Then he saw her walking slowly, quietly, alone. Anna's coat, though new, already bore the signs of schoolyard wear. One mitten was tucked into her pocket. The other clutched a drawing she was trying not to wrinkle. She passed 2 boys who pointed and whispered, not cruelly, but with curiosity sharpened by secondhand gossip. There she is. That's the girl from television. She lives in the new building now, right? She's got a rich guy. Anna didn't flinch, but her shoulders stiffened. She lowered her eyes and kept walking. Patrick took a step forward, ready to say something but paused. This wasn't his moment. Not yet. Let her find her feet, a voice said behind him. Patrick turned to see Reverend Malcolm Ward approaching, dressed in a thick pea coat, his breath rising in puffs. His eyes, sharp and knowing, scanned the school entrance as if he, too, were watching more than children. She's brave, Patrick said. She's surviving, Malcolm replied. There's a difference. Patrick looked at him. Thanks for coming. I'd come for a girl like her any day. You said she needed opportunity. What exactly do you have in mind? I want her seen, protected, challenged, not pitied. Patrick hesitated. And I want Evelyn supported, without being made to feel dependent. Malcolm nodded slowly. You're talking more than money. I'm talking legacy. I want to create something. A fund, a mentorship, an anchor. Malcolm rubbed his chin. You want to fix something broken. Patrick's voice dropped. I want to stop running from what's broken. They stood in silence for a while, the bell ringing distantly. Teachers herded kids inside. Anna gave one last glance back toward the street and caught sight of Patrick. She didn't wave, but her lips curled into a small smile, just enough for him to see. Then she disappeared into the brick building. I'll set up a meeting, Malcolm said. There are good people we can loop in. Quietly. People who won't turn this into a press release. I'd appreciate that. Malcolm turned to go, then stopped. She's got your eyes, you know. Patrick blinked. What? When she looks at something, she doesn't just see it. She measures it, weighs it. That's rare in a child. Patrick said nothing. Back in class, Anna sat at her desk, watching the window. Snow was falling again. Miss Dorsey handed back their math tests and gave a nod of encouragement. Anna had earned a perfect score. Still, she tucked it into her folder without celebration. At lunch, she found a surprise her favorite fruit snacks and a folded note inside her bag. Keep your chin up, I see you, P. She smiled. Not just in her mouth but in her eyes. That evening, Patrick returned to his office and called Lindsay. Draft a plan, he said. I want to start a foundation low profile. Name it after Claire. Lindsay, caught off guard, fumbled her stylus. Claire, your daughter? Yes. The Claire Miles Initiative. Start with scholarships, micro-grants for single guardians, small libraries in underserved schools, and keep Anna's name out of everything. This isn't about gratitude. It's about repair. Lindsay paused. Do you want to involve the press? No, he said firmly. I want to involve the future. Meanwhile, Evelyn opened the door to a knock that evening and found a quiet man in a postal uniform holding a clipboard. Delivery for Miss Anna Carter, he said. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. She doesn't usually get mail. He smiled and handed over a small package. Inside was a sketchbook, thick with blank pages, and a handwritten note on crisp stationery. For the artist in you, fill it with every dream. P. Evelyn didn't have to ask who it was from. She placed it gently on Anna's pillow and sat on the bed a while, staring at the ceiling. I don't know who you are anymore, Mr. Patrick Miles, she whispered to the air, but I think you were sent for her. Anna found the gift later and held it to her chest, the way a child holds a treasure they didn't know they needed. Outside, the snow kept falling, and the world, though still cold, still complicated, felt just a little bit softer, because sometimes the greatest change doesn't come with headlines or speeches, but with a sketchbook, a promise, and a man standing quietly at a school gate. The weeks that followed settled into an unexpected rhythm. Anna woke up each morning in her new bed with the scent of warm air, and Evelyn's morning humming filling the apartment. Her mornings were quiet but steady. School no longer felt like a battlefield, more like a maze she was learning to walk through, one corner at a time. The sketchbook from Patrick sat beside her every night, half filled now with everything from memories to dreams. One page held a pencil drawing of her grandmother's hands holding a teacup. Another showed the skyline beyond her new bedroom window. She had even drawn Patrick once standing near the school fence, face half shaded by scarf and snow. But it wasn't all smooth. Whispers still trailed her in the halls, not cruel, just persistent. Kids asked questions. What was it like to ride in his car? Did she have a credit card? Was he adopting her? Sometimes she answered, sometimes she didn't. One Friday afternoon, as the last bell echoed down the tiled halls of Eastview Elementary, Anna slipped out through the back door to avoid the cluster of waiting parents. She wasn't expecting anyone. Evelyn usually waited for her at the bus stop, but that day, the air felt too heavy with questions. She wandered toward the basketball court behind the gym. The snow had hardened into icy patches, but the rusted hoops still hung above cracked asphalt. Then she heard it. "Hey, charity case." She turned. 3 boys stood near the bike rack, older, maybe 5th graders. She didn't know their names. The tallest one, in a puffy red jacket, stepped forward. "What's it like having some rich white dude buy your life?" Anna didn't move. "He didn't buy anything." "You live in a fancy place now, right?" the second one asked. "Bet you got a fridge full of pizza and juice boxes." "Leave her alone," a voice snapped from behind them. It was Jamal, the boy from her class who used to whisper too much. He stood with his backpack slung one shoulder, fists clenched. "Back off," the tall boy scoffed. "What, you her bodyguard now?" "No," Jamal said, "but I don't pick on people who've been through more than you'll ever understand." Anna's breath caught. The red jacket boy smirked but didn't push it. He turned and walked off, the others trailing. Their laughter faded into the street noise. Anna looked at Jamal, unsure what to say. He scratched the back of his head. "Sorry, they're jerks." "Thanks," she said quietly. He shrugged. "You drew me in your notebook last week." I recognized my ears. She smiled, the tension breaking. "I drew you because you were the only one who didn't look at me like I was made of glass," she said. He nodded. "Well, you're not. You're more like steel." She grinned wider. That evening, Evelyn sat at the small kitchen table, flipping through a stack of envelopes. Bills, appointment reminders, a city notice about housing vouchers. She sighed. Then she found it. A letter addressed to her in delicate handwriting. No return address. Inside was a single sheet. "Miss Evelyn, this is only the beginning. You are not alone. P." Her hands trembled slightly. She placed the note beside the tea kettle and stared out the window. Snow again. Always snow. Across town, Patrick stood in the back of a crowded community center. Reverend Malcolm was leading a roundtable: city workers, educators, a nurse, 2 retired judges. They spoke about forgotten neighborhoods and overlooked children. And in the middle of it all, Patrick listened. He hadn't spoken yet, but they all knew why he was there. When the meeting ended, Malcolm pulled him aside. "You sure you want to keep your name out of this?" "I'm not the story," Patrick said. "Anna is. Evelyn is. They're the story." "You know, you're making waves," Malcolm said. "Quiet ones, but deep." "Good," Patrick replied. "Waves reach the places shouting can't." Malcolm grinned. "That's poetic for a stockbroker." Patrick allowed himself a chuckle. Later that night, Evelyn sat beside Anna's bed, watching her sketch beneath the warm glow of a reading lamp. "What are you drawing tonight?" she asked. Anna held up the page. It was a lighthouse on a rocky shore, light beaming out into the darkness. "Why a lighthouse?" Evelyn asked. "Because even when it's cold and stormy," Anna said, "it still helps people find their way." Evelyn nodded, eyes shining. "Just like you." "No," Anna said softly. "Just like him." She didn't need to say his name. They both knew. Outside, the shadows stretched long across the sleeping city. But in one quiet home, a lighthouse burned. Not of bricks or beams, but of trust, resilience, and a little girl who had once stood in the snow and asked for a hug, and a man who, for the first time in a long time, had listened. It began with a letter. Monday morning, Anna opened her locker at Eastview Elementary to find a cream-colored envelope tucked inside. No name on the front, just one word, handwritten in blue ink across the back flap: brave. She hesitated, glancing around the hall. Students bustled past, their boots squeaking on tile, their laughter echoing through the corridors. No one seemed to notice her standing still, fingers trembling slightly as she peeled open the flap. Inside was a single page. "Dear Anna, you don't know me, but I know about you. Not because of headlines, or whispers, or the stories that kids tell, but because kindness echoes. And when someone does something good, it ripples out further than they'll ever know. You reminded someone of what it means to believe again, to care, to protect. You matter. Keep drawing, keep dreaming. You're not alone. A friend. Anna folded the letter carefully and slipped it into the front pocket of her sketchbook, pressing it flat like a leaf she didn't want to lose. She didn't know who sent it, but it felt honest and warm and strangely permanent. That afternoon, during art class, she drew something new. A treehouse, perched on a massive oak with a rope ladder and string lights winding through the branches. In the windows, silhouettes of two people, one tall, one small, both holding mugs of something warm. Above them, in block letters, "Safety lives here." Her teacher, Miss Dorsey, passed behind her and paused. "That's beautiful, Anna." Anna looked up. "It's just an idea." "Maybe," Miss Dorsey said, "but every good idea starts with a drawing." Oh. Meanwhile, across the city, Patrick sat in the boardroom of Miles and Keene Holdings, surrounded by faces that hadn't changed in years: investors, partners, and advisors with tight smiles and tired eyes. "We've reviewed the foundation proposal," said Marlene Grant, chief counsel, "but there are questions about sustainability. You're proposing direct funding to households, education, access grants, and community infrastructure improvements, quietly and without branding." That's correct," Patrick said. One of the board members frowned. "But where's the visibility? The PR return?" "There isn't one," Patrick said, calm but firm. "This isn't about visibility. It's about vision." Another leaned forward. "Patrick, respectfully, you've always been focused on return capital, credibility, influence. Now you're asking us to approve a multi-million-dollar initiative that avoids headlines." Patrick stood, his hands folded behind his back. "Years ago, I lost someone, and I convinced myself the only way to fill that hole was with more buildings, more power, more zeros at the end of the ledger. But none of it brought her back. None of it made me feel again." He paused. "Until I met a little girl on a snowy street who asked me for something simple, a hug, and for the first time in over a decade, I felt human again." Silence. "I'm not asking for approval," Patrick finished. "I'm informing you of a legacy that begins today, one that doesn't end with me but begins with her." He left the room without waiting for their response. Later that evening, Evelyn was stirring soup on the stovetop when there was a knock at the door. She opened it to find Reverend Malcolm holding a file. "Evening, Miss Carter," he said, smiling. "Got a little something for you." He handed her the folder paperwork outlining a full scholarship program in Anna's name, elementary through college. Covered, alongside it, a healthcare package for Evelyn herself. Discreet, thorough. Evelyn blinked. "I didn't ask for this." "I know," Malcolm said softly, "but someone who loves your granddaughter wants her to walk into every room without apology." Evelyn swallowed hard. "She's just a little girl." "She's also the beginning of something," Malcolm replied. "The kind of beginning the world needs more of." Inside, Anna sat by the window, sketching again. This time, it wasn't a place, but a moment. She drew a man standing at a crossroads, coat flapping in the wind. Before him, two signs, one pointing toward a towering skyline labeled "Success." The other, smaller but glowing, marked "Someone's Heart." She colored in the second path with gold. That night, as snow began to fall again, Patrick stood alone on his balcony, coat open, breath steaming in the cold. He stared at the lights flickering across the city and thought about how easy it had been to build empires of glass and steel and how hard it was to build a single honest connection. But somehow, Anna had made it look effortless. In his hand was a drawing she'd mailed him. The treehouse, the string lights, the mugs, the words, "Safety lives here." He held it to his chest, then turned and walked back insouciant as a billionaire, or a mogul, or a man haunted by loss, but simply as a friend. And from that window, if you looked closely, you might have seen it. The faintest light glowing not from the city below but from somewhere within him. The soft flicker of something returning. Something that, until Anna, he thought was lost forever. Hope. Patrick stood in front of the mirror longer than usual that morning. The tailored suit draped perfectly, the silk tie knotted just right. His reflection offered no criticism, no flaws. And yet, he barely recognized the man looking back. Somewhere in the corner of his eyes, the hard lines of routine had softened. There was warmth behind his gaze, a hesitant, but undeniable. He reached for the lapel pin resting in a small velvet box, a tiny gold lighthouse, no larger than a thumbnail. He pinned it to his jacket, just above the heart. "Let them ask," he murmured to his reflection. "I'll tell them it's for someone who helped me find my way." Downstairs, the car waited. Lindsay sat in the back, reviewing notes. "Big day," she said without looking up. "It is," Patrick replied, sliding in beside her. She finally looked at him, raising an eyebrow. "You sure about this? The gala's crawling with donors, and the press. They'll expect the usual endorsements, handshakes, big promises." Patrick looked out the window as the city rushed past. Then maybe it's time they heard something different. Meanwhile, in Kensington, Evelyn helped Anna into her coat while brushing snowflakes from her hair. "Do you remember your lines?" Evelyn asked. Anna nodded. "I practiced with Jamal all week." Evelyn adjusted Anna's scarf. "You're going to do just fine. Just remember, stand tall, speak slow, and look them in the eye. That's how people remember what you say." Anna smiled. "Like you always do?" Evelyn chuckled. "Maybe not always, but I try." Their bus pulled up. Inside, Anna clutched her folder and gazed at the city rolling by, the weight of something exciting and terrifying settling into her chest. That night, she would speak in front of strangers, in a room she never dreamed she'd step foot in, all because someone had believed in her. When evening came, the ballroom at the Metropolitan Civic Hall gleamed with opulent crystal chandeliers, velvet curtains, polished marble floors. It was a place where decisions were made over caviar and champagne, where people spoke in half smiles and veiled compliments. But not tonight. Patrick took the stage without the usual music. No announcement, no formal introduction. He adjusted the microphone, looked out at the crowd, and began. "Years ago, I built a company from the ground up. And I told myself that success meant control, power, distance. I became very good at staying distant." He paused. The room stilled. "But distance is dangerous. It teaches us to see people as numbers, as burdens, as case files. It numbs us to the very things that make life worth living." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded drawing. Anna's treehouse. "This was given to me by someone who reminded me what I'd forgotten. That safety isn't a luxury, it's a right. That kindness isn't a weakness, it's a foundation." He looked out again. "Her name is Anna. She's here tonight." Gasps and whispers rose across the ballroom. "She's not a cause," Patrick continued. "She's a catalyst. And tonight, she'll tell you, in her own words, why the future needs more than just investments. It needs belief." He stepped aside. Anna, dressed in a navy blue dress Evelyn had altered herself, climbed the steps to the podium. Her knees wobbled, her hands trembled, but her eyes found Patrick and steadied. "Hi," she began, her voice small but clear. "My name is Anna Carter. I'm 9 years old. I live in an apartment with my grandma Evelyn. We used to be cold a lot, and I used to draw lighthouses in the dark." She held up a page from her sketchbook. The same treehouse, now redrawn with more color, more light. "This is what I see when I think of home. It's not big, but it's safe. And sometimes, when you live in places where no one looks you in the eye, safety feels like the biggest thing in the world." She took a breath. "Someone saw me. When I was cold, and tired, and scared. He didn't give me everything, but he gave me enough to believe I could be more." A pause. "There are more kids like me, and they need someone to see them too." Silence held the room like glass. Then applause. Not polite, not forced, but loud, earnest. Some stood, some wiped away tears. Patrick watched from the side, his eyes fixed on Anna. And for the first time in years, he felt something he hadn't felt since Claire Pride, not in himself, but in someone who had risen beyond the world's low expectations. Later, as the crowd dispersed and the champagne fizzed in glasses untouched, Evelyn pulled Patrick aside. "She was nervous," Evelyn said. "But she said you'd be there." "I always will be," he said quietly. Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. "You're not running anymore, are you?" Patrick shook his head. I'm finally home." Outside, snow began to fall again, soft and steady, and inside a little girl's pocket, a note remained, folded words from a stranger that had echoed louder than applause. "You matter. Keep drawing, keep dreaming, You're not alone. The morning after the gala was crisp and gray, the city dusted in a fine layer of new snow. But something hung heavier in the air, something just beneath the surface. Not all whispers are kind, and not every gesture of generosity goes unquestioned. Anna sat at the breakfast table, slowly spooning cereal into her mouth. Evelyn moved quietly around the kitchen, watching her granddaughter with the soft wariness of someone waiting for news they couldn't predict. "You did real good last night," Evelyn said gently. Anna looked up, her face blank. "I guess." "You guess?" Evelyn asked, pulling out a chair. "Sweetheart, people stood up for you. They clapped like they meant it." "I know," Anna said, "but Jamal didn't come to school today." "Oh." Evelyn frowned. "What do you mean?" "I called him this morning. His mom said he's not feeling well, but—" She looked down. He sounded scared. Evelyn's hand tightened around her teacup. She knew fear when she heard it even secondhand, and she knew that in neighborhoods like theirs, fear didn't always come from the dark. Sometimes, it came from people in plain sight. That same day, Patrick sat in his office, reading headlines that left a bitter taste in his mouth. Patrick Miles Funds. Mysterious Civic Redemption Foundation child at center of attention. Billionaire savior or emotional investor? Critics ask, what's his angle? He closed the laptop and leaned back, rubbing his temples. The room felt colder than usual. Lindsay entered without knocking. "We've got a problem." Patrick raised an eyebrow. "Two, actually," she continued. "One, child welfare is poking around Evelyn's case. Quietly, but it smells political. Two, someone's leaking documents from inside the foundation. Probably trying to spin the story like it's all a PR stunt." Patrick's jaw tightened. "Find out who." "And the girl?" Patrick's eyes hardened. "No one touches her. Not without going through me." Meanwhile, in Kensington, Evelyn opened the door to find a woman in a long coat holding a badge. Child Protective Services. "Mrs. Carter, I'd like to talk with you about Anna." Evelyn's heart dropped. "She's at school," Evelyn said calmly, "and she's safe." "I'm sure she is," the agent said. "But there have been concerns raised, questions about her well-being, her sudden change in living conditions." Evelyn narrowed her eyes. "You mean because a man helped us when no one else did?" The agent didn't answer. She pulled out a clipboard. "We're required to do a standard welfare check. I'd like to schedule a visit to your home." "Fine," Evelyn said, voice steady. "But if this is about Patrick Miles, you'd better be prepared to explain why the system failed us first." That evening, Anna walked home with her sketchbook hugged tightly against her chest. The sky above had turned pale violet, and the streets glowed with early winter light. As she turned the corner, a voice called out, "Hey!" She froze. It was Jamal. He ran up to her, breathless. "I'm sorry I missed school," he said. "My uncle said I shouldn't hang around anymore." "Why?" Anna asked. Jamal looked away. "He said there's talk, that Mr. Miles is doing this for attention, that people like us don't get things for free unless someone wants something." Anna's throat tightened. "But he didn't ask for anything." "I know," Jamal said, "but people don't like things they don't understand." They stood in silence, snow crunching beneath their feet. "I believe you," he added. "I just wanted you to know that." She nodded. "Thank you." The next day, Patrick walked into Reverend Malcolm's office, holding the latest set of photos, Anna's drawings. More vivid now, a community center, a street filled with lights, children reading books beside a fire. "These aren't just sketches," Patrick said. "They're plans." Malcolm nodded. "So what are you going to do?" "Build them," Patrick said. Malcolm raised an eyebrow. "That simple?" "No," Patrick admitted, "but that necessary." Just then, Patrick's phone buzzed. A message from Lindsay. "They're calling Evelyn in for questioning. Anonymous complaint. Legal team notified." Patrick stared at the screen for a long moment. "What happened?" Malcolm asked. Patrick exhaled slowly. The world pushed back. Malcolm folded his arms. "Then push harder." Back in their apartment, Evelyn sat Anna down. "Someone might come ask us questions soon," she said. "About Mr. Miles, about where we live, about everything." Anna's eyes widened. "Are they taking me away?" "No," Evelyn said firmly. "Not if I have anything to say about it." "But why?" Anna asked, voice cracking. "We didn't do anything wrong." "No, baby," Evelyn whispered, pulling her close. We did something right. And sometimes, that's what scares people most. That night, Patrick stood once more at his window, the city lights reflecting in the glass. He touched the gold lighthouse pin on his lapel. They won't break her, he said to himself. And somewhere in the quiet warmth of Kensington, Anna drew another picture, this time of a bridge, arched high and strong, stretching across a river of shadows. In the center of it, she drew a little girl standing with her arms outstretched, wind in her hair, a light shining in her chest. Hope, once again, held its ground. The community center buzzed with activity, but Evelyn Carter sat perfectly still at the end of the long table, her hands folded in her lap, her spine straight. Across from her sat two representatives from Child Protective Services, a city lawyer with a tired suit, and a young woman from the Department of Housing who looked barely old enough to vote. They had files, clipboards, digital tablets. They had questions. Evelyn had answers. Let's begin with the basics, the lawyer said. Your name is Evelyn Carter. You currently have full guardianship of Anna Carter, your granddaughter, following the death of her parents 4 years ago? Yes, Evelyn replied. Why didn't you apply for formal state support at the time? Because I was scared of losing her, Evelyn said, meeting his eyes, and because I didn't trust a system that's let too many of us fall through. There was a beat of silence. The young woman scribbled something on her tablet. And now, the CPS representative continued, you're living in a new unit provided by Mr. Patrick Miles. Is that correct? Yes. And you didn't find that suspicious? Evelyn's gaze sharpened. You mean that a man with more money than he knows what to do with used it to help a child who needed warmth, stability, and dignity? Number, I found it overdue. The lawyer shifted in his seat. There are concerns of coercion whether Anna has been used for publicity. Evelyn leaned forward. Has she appeared in one commercial, one newspaper, one staged photo op? If Patrick wanted to use her, believe me, there would have been headlines, but there weren't. Only handwritten notes, hot meals, and safety, something you're supposed to provide. The CPS woman frowned slightly but said nothing. Meanwhile, across the city, Anna sat on a bench at Eastview Elementary's quiet courtyard. It was her recess break, but she didn't feel like playing today. Jamal sat beside her, silent but present. They think she's a bad grandma, Anna finally whispered. They're wrong, Jamal said. I don't want to go somewhere else. You won't, he said. Patrick won't let that happen, and neither will your grandma. She's got fire. Anna smiled a little. Yeah, she does. In Patrick's office, Lindsay placed a stack of documents on his desk. Evelyn's being interviewed now. They're trying to spin this as overreach, unchecked philanthropy, accusations of emotional manipulation. Patrick's jaw clenched. By whom? A city councilman, Lindsay said. George Hallwell. He's up for re-election, trying to paint himself as a defender of institutional transparency, meaning he's using Anna to make headlines. Patrick growled. Yes. Patrick stood. Get me an appointment with the mayor. Today. I already did, Lindsay replied. And Reverend Malcolm's agreed to come with you. That afternoon, Patrick sat across from Mayor Sharon Delano, who watched him with an expression somewhere between curiosity and guardedness. This is bigger than a girl and her grandmother, Patrick said. It's about whether this city protects its most vulnerable or uses them as leverage. Sharon steepled her fingers. George Hallwell's a loud voice. Then I'll be louder, Patrick said. And you think you'll win this fight? I'm not here to win, Patrick said. I'm here to stop watching decent people get hurt by a system that's supposed to help them. Sharon considered him for a long moment. Then you better be ready, because if this goes public, it'll get ugly. Patrick nodded. Then let's go public the right way. Back in the CPS office, Evelyn stood as the meeting ended. If you think I'm going to hand over my granddaughter because a man with a soul decided to care, she said, voice steady, you don't know who you're dealing with. The CPS representative looked down, unable to meet her eyes. Evelyn turned and walked out, each step steady, strong. That night, Patrick returned to his apartment and found another drawing waiting in the mail no return address. Just a picture of a bridge, now with more people walking across it. Children, mothers, elderly men, even figures in suits. And in the middle, still holding her arms out, stood the girl with the light in her chest. Anna. The message was clear. This wasn't just her story anymore. It belonged to all of them. To every person who'd ever waited too long for kindness. To every child who still dreamed under broken ceilings. To every elder who'd held a family together with love and nothing else. Patrick looked out the window, the city sprawling beneath him, and whispered, "We keep going." And somewhere, as snow began to fall again, Evelyn Carter placed a kiss on her granddaughter's forehead and whispered, "Let them come, we've got light." And the light, it seemed, wasn't going anywhere. Mayor Sharon Delano sat alone in her office that night, the windows behind her darkened by the falling snow, the city lights scattered like diamonds across velvet. She'd spent the last 2 hours rereading the transcript of Evelyn Carter's hearing and reviewing the background of Patrick Miles, a man with enormous wealth, a child with a quiet fire, and a grandmother who had more backbone than half the council combined. She picked up her phone and dialed. "Get me Councilman Hallwell," she said to her assistant. "Now." Meanwhile, Patrick and Reverend Malcolm met again at the old chapel on 14th Street. Patrick had just returned from Evelyn's apartment, where he'd shared dinner with her and Anna, simple meal of chicken, stew, cornbread, and soft laughter. It had reminded him of something lost, or maybe something he'd never had. "She stood up for Anna like a lioness," Patrick said as they walked down the chapel's quiet hallway. Malcolm smiled. "That's what love does. It roars." "I want to do more," Patrick said. "Not just for them, for all the families hanging on by threads." Malcolm stopped at the threshold of his office. "Then build something that lasts." Patrick turned to him. "You've said that before, and I'll keep saying it until you stop building towers and start building roots." That night, Evelyn received a phone call. "Mrs. Carter," said the woman on the line, "this is Mayor Delano. I'd like to visit your home tomorrow. No cameras, no press, just me." Evelyn paused. "You're welcome, Madam Mayor. But I don't sweep anything under the rug, if that's what you're hoping." "I wouldn't ask you to," Delano said. The next day, Sharon Delano arrived in a city car, no security detail, just a woman in a burgundy coat, stepping into a modest apartment where warmth lived in every corner. Evelyn greeted her with a firm handshake. Anna peeked from behind the hallway with cautious eyes. "I brought you something," the mayor said, holding out a tin of butter cookies. "Old habit from my grandmother." Anna stepped forward slowly and took it with a nod. "Thank you." Sharon sat at the kitchen table with Evelyn as the kettle whistled. "You raised her well," Sharon said. "I'm still raising her," Evelyn replied. "One fight at a time." "I've read everything," Sharon said, "and I believe you. But politics doesn't always play by the rules of fairness." Evelyn leaned forward. "Then maybe you should be the one who changes the rules." The mayor smiled faintly. "That's why I'm here." At Eastview Elementary, Anna's drawing had been chosen for the district-wide Winter Showcasia mural to be displayed in the main hallway. She worked on it during art period, side by side with Jamal and 2 other classmates. The theme was, "What makes a home?" Anna's section showed a city block with lights in every window. One apartment had a woman knitting by a radio. Another showed kids dancing in the kitchen. On the top floor, a girl sat at a desk drawing by lamplight. Next to her was a man in a chair, holding a coffee cup, gazing quietly through a window. When her teacher asked what it meant, Anna said, "That's what home is. Not just a place, but people who see you." Across town, Councilman George Hallwell watched the news segment replay on his office television. Evelyn's CPS case dropped. The foundation gaining traction. The mayor stepping in with her own investigation into how such a complaint had been filed without clear cause. His jaw clenched. He picked up the phone. "I want everything you've got on Patrick Miles. I don't care how old it is. I want headlines. I want leverage." But what he got was unexpected. A past case, sealed, regarding Patrick's late daughter, Claire, and a charity that had folded under suspicion but never went to trial. Hallwell grinned. "Now that's something we can work with." Back at the Miles Foundation, Lindsay walked into Patrick's office, holding a slim red folder. "We've got a situation." Patrick looked up. "Someone's leaking old files. Claire's files." His expression changed instantly. The muscle in his jaw twitched. "Where?" "Hallwell, most likely. But he's using third-party outlets, whisper campaigns." Patrick stood slowly. "We protect the truth. And if the truth hurts you," he looked out the window, "then let it hurt me." But don't let it touch Anna. Later that night, Patrick called Evelyn. They're coming after me, he said. Evelyn didn't hesitate. Let them. You've done nothing wrong. I've made mistakes, he admitted. We all have, she said. But Anna's light? That's not one of them. Patrick looked down at the drawing Anna had given him weeks ago, the lighthouse in the storm. I'll weather it, he said. You're not alone, Evelyn replied. And for the first time in years, he believed it. Snow began to fall again as the city slipped into silence. In a small apartment, a child sketched warmth into the corners of cold buildings. In a mayor's office, new policies were drafted under soft lamplight, and in the heart of one determined billionaire, the past stirred but didn't own him. Not anymore. The past has a scent. For Patrick Miles, it arrived in the form of paper-edged, yellowed edges and the faint odor of a drawer left unopened for years. The documents Lindsay placed on his desk didn't just carry old accusations. They carried memories, ghosts. He stared at the top page. The logo of the Claire Miles Foundation was still there, faded but intact. Beneath it, a headline: Unregistered donations and financial gaps. It was a half-truth wrapped in scandal. The foundation had shut down before it could defend itself, buried beneath grief and silence after Claire's death. Patrick had walked away from that fight, thinking the world wouldn't care. Now, it had come back with teeth. They're calling it neglect, Lindsay said quietly, implying you used Claire's charity as a tax shelter. Patrick didn't look up. They're using my daughter. Yes, she said, but not just to hurt you, to discredit Anna. That snapped his gaze up. They're suggesting a pattern, Lindsay continued. That your interest in vulnerable children is self-serving, that you're grooming public sympathy. Patrick stood slowly. Get me in front of a camera. Lindsay blinked. Now? Now. Elsewhere, Anna sat on the living room floor, organizing her markers by color. Evelyn was folding laundry nearby when the phone rang. She picked it up on the second ring. Mrs. Carter, this is Pastor Malcolm. Turn on Channel 8. Evelyn didn't ask why. She grabbed the remote and flipped the television on. The screen lit up with Patrick standing behind a podium in a small press room. No glitz, no stage lights, just a man and a truth long overdue. I'm here today, Patrick began. Not because I want to defend myself, but because I won't let the truth be twisted into something ugly. He placed a hand on the podium. Years ago, I created a charity in my daughter's name. Claire was brilliant, compassionate, and gone too soon. After she died, I fell apart. The charity collapsed with me. It wasn't corruption. It was heartbreak. The room was silent. But if you want to call that a failure, fine. I'll wear it. But don't you dare use my grief to hurt a child. Don't weaponize a little girl's hope to score political points. Anna's eyes widened. Patrick's voice didn't waver. Helping Anna didn't save me. It reminded me I was still alive. And if that's a crime, then I'll keep committing it because I will not stop building a world where children are seen, valued, and protected. He stepped back. The cameras kept rolling. But Patrick was done talking. Across town, Councilman Hallwell slammed a folder shut. Get me a new angle, he snapped at his aide. That sympathy speech won't hold. But the damage was done. Patrick's words spread. Online. On radio. In living rooms. And in schools. At Eastview Elementary, Anna walked into class the next morning to find something strange quiet. No stares, no whispers. Then Jamal leaned over. You're on my grandma's fridge, he whispered. Anna blinked. What? She printed that article. Said you were the reason she donated to the food pantry this month. Anna smiled. In the hallways, a teacher gave her a thumbs up. Another handed her a book on architecture. Thought you'd like it, he said, nodding to her sketchbook. Even the principal called her into his officinate for punishment. But to ask if she'd consider joining the Student Kindness Council. That night, Evelyn cooked fried catfish and okra, while Anna read on the couch. When the news came on, they both paused. Mayor Delano was speaking at a city town hall. We cannot allow fear or cynicism to decide which children deserve opportunity, the mayor said. We cannot allow compassion to be framed as exploitation. Mr. Miles has committed to full transparency, and I, for one, welcome what he and his foundation bring to this city. Then her tone shifted. As for Councilman Hallwell's conduct, I've opened a formal ethics review. Evelyn exhaled, long and slow. Anna turned. Is that good? It's more than good, Evelyn said. It's justice getting out of bed. Later, Patrick stood on the balcony of his penthouse. Snow fell again, soft and slow. Lindsay stepped beside him. The storm's passing. No, he said. It's just beginning. But this time, I've got boots on. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out another drawing. Anna had given him this one of a courtroom, but instead of judges and lawyers, the benches were filled with kids, and the judge's gavel had been replaced with a paintbrush. She sees the world better than most adults, he murmured. Lindsay smiled, because she's still allowed to dream. And in that moment, with the wind whispering against the glass and the city blinking awake below, Patrick knew this wasn't just about saving Anna anymore. It was about changing the story so that no child's light would ever be used against them again. The snow kept falling, blanketing the city in quiet, but beneath the silence, things were moving. The air carried an urgency, a pulse. Evelyn felt it in her bones when she stepped outside that morning, a sharpness in the wind that told her something wasn't finished yet. Anna skipped beside her, coat zipped up to her chin, cheeks flushed from the cold. Her backpack bounced against her shoulders with each step. Can I show Miss Dorsey the courthouse drawing today? She asked. Of course, Evelyn said. She'll love it. As they approached the school, Evelyn noticed two men in suits standing by the front gates. They weren't teachers. They weren't parents. They were city officials. She recognized the posture. The practiced stiffness of people trained to look like they belonged everywhere, but never did. One of them nodded at her. Mrs. Carter, he said. We'd like a word. Evelyn stiffened. Is there a problem? No, ma'am, the second man replied. We just have a few follow-up questions. Routine. Anna's grip on Evelyn's hand tightened. This is a school, Evelyn said calmly. You can ask your questions elsewhere. Patrick was already at the foundation when he got the call. They approached her outside Eastview, Lindsay said. Her voice clipped with anger. Two city agents. They backed off when she pushed, but they made it clear Hallwell's not finished. Patrick slammed his desk drawer shut. I want a press conference. Noon. We go public again. This time with what? Lindsay asked. With names. Evelyn and Anna arrived at the foundation an hour later. Malcolm was waiting in the lobby with a cup of hot tea, which he handed to Evelyn without a word. She took it, nodded in gratitude, and sat down with Anna on her lap. I don't want to go back to that school, Anna whispered. You won't, Patrick said, appearing from the hallway. Not until it's safe. Anna looked up at him. Why do they hate us? Patrick knelt down beside her. Because they don't understand what love looks like when it's louder than fear. Noon came fast. The press conference room was packed. Reporters elbowed for space. Cameras whirred. Patrick took the podium, flanked by Evelyn, Malcolm, and Mayor Delano. We've all heard the whispers, Patrick began. That a billionaire's trying to buy a little girl's life. That kindness must come with strings. That generosity is suspicious. He looked directly into the cameras. I have no interest in defending myself again, but I will defend Evelyn Carter and her granddaughter Anna because they represent what's right in this city. And those trying to silence them are afraid of what that righteousness exposes. He held up a manila folder. In this file are the details of an anonymous complaint filed against the Carters initiated by Councilman George Hallwell's office. An attempt to discredit, distract, and destroy. It won't work. Gasps rippled through the room. Delano stepped forward. Effective immediately, Councilman Hallwell has been placed under investigation for abuse of authority, targeted harassment, and obstruction of community services. More gasps. And as mayor, she continued, I am partnering with the Miles Foundation to create a permanent fund. The Anna Project, dedicated to identifying and dismantling institutional barriers that prevent children from accessing safety, education, and opportunity. Evelyn reached for Anna's hand. Anna squeezed back. Outside, the crowd that had gathered beneath the snowfall began to cheer. Later that evening, back at the apartment, Evelyn tucked Anna into bed. She sat beside her, brushing a curl from the girl's forehead. Did we win? Anna asked. Evelyn smiled. No, baby, we didn't win. Anna's eyes widened. We started, Evelyn whispered, and sometimes that's even more important. Downstairs, Patrick leaned against the building's brick wall, watching the snow swirl in the streetlight. He held a copy of the Daily Tribune in one hand. The headline read, "Carter's cleared. Hallwell falls. Truth stands tall." Malcolm joined him, hands in his coat pockets. "She's going to be something," Malcolm said. "She already is," Patrick replied. From Anna's bedroom window, light spilled out into the snow, a soft beacon against the night. And in her dreams, she was building again, not just with pencils and markers, but with bricks and beams, a city where no one was invisible, where every window had a light behind it, where every child had a name, a story, and someone who saw them. The snow kept falling, but this time, beneath it, something burned, justice, and it wasn't going out. The newsroom was buzzing the next morning, not just with the fallout of Hallwell's suspension, but with something rarer hope. For once, the top story wasn't about scandal, crime, or chaos. It was about a little girl and a grandmother who had stood their ground, about a city that, even in the dead of winter, remembered what light looked like. In her small bedroom, Anna stared at the newspaper front page lying on her desk. There she waist-tucked under Evelyn's arm, her wool cap slightly crooked, her wide brown eyes peering up at the camera. The caption read, "She spoke. The city listened." She touched the image gently with her fingertips. Evelyn walked in with a tray of oatmeal and orange slices. "Eat before it gets cold." Anna smiled but didn't move. "You dreaming again?" Evelyn asked. Anna nodded. "Do you think I could really design something real, like a school or a library?" Evelyn placed the tray on the table. "I think you already have. You're just waiting for the world to catch up." Across the city, Patrick stood in the middle of a construction site, a vacant lot once marked for luxury condos, now surrounded by temporary fencing and the skeletal beginnings of something new. The foundation was poured, steel beams rising like the first chords of a symphony. Beside him, Lindsay reviewed blueprints. "It's ambitious," she said, "and it'll ruffle feathers." "Good," Patrick replied. "Feathers need ruffling." He stepped aside as a crew hauled in more supplies. A sign had been mounted on the fence, "The Anna Project, a community of possibility." Underneath it, smaller letters read, "In partnership with the City of New York." I've had 4 donors threaten to pull out," Lindsay said. "They say we're politicizing the mission." Patrick turned to her. "It was always political. They just didn't notice until it got uncomfortable." Back at Eastview Elementary, Anna was called to the front office during lunch. She walked the halls slowly, wondering if this was another interview, another official-looking person asking too many questions. But it wasn't. In the front office stood Miss Dorsey, the art teacher, holding a package. "This came for you," she said, smiling. Anna took the box and opened it carefully. Inside was a hardcover portfolio, leather-bound, embossed with gold leaf. Her drawings. All of them. Professionally printed and bound. There was a note tucked inside. "Dear Anna, the world needs your eyes. This is only the beginning. P." Tears sprang to her eyes, but she blinked them away. Not because she was sad, but because sometimes joy fills you so full, it spills out however it can. That night, Evelyn and Patrick met at the diner on 10th and Franklin, where the coffee was always hot and the pie always a little too sweet. The place was half empty, jazz playing low from a dusty speaker above the jukebox. "She's glowing," Patrick said, stirring his cup. "She's becoming," Evelyn corrected. "It's not just light, it's direction." Patrick nodded. "The project breaks ground next month." Evelyn smiled. "And what happens after that?" "We build," he said. "A real place, for real people. No velvet ropes, no boardrooms, just stories like hers." She leaned back, studying him. "You ever think Claire would have liked her?" Patrick didn't answer for a moment. Then he said softly, "She would have seen herself in her." Later, alone in his apartment, Patrick pulled out a weathered journal, Claire's. He hadn't opened it in years. Its pages were yellowed, the ink faded in places. He flipped to a page marked with a ribbon. What if we built something that outlived our grief? What if kindness was the blueprint? Patrick traced the words with his finger, then closed the book and whispered, "That's what we're doing now." The next morning, Anna's mural was unveiled in the school's main hallway. Parents, teachers, city officials, and even a few local news crews came to see it. It wasn't flashy, no grand ceremony, just the steady hush of admiration as people filed past the colorful panels. In the center of it all was a familiar figure, a little girl standing on a bridge of books, reaching out her hand toward others waiting to cross. Above her, clouds parted, revealing not sunlight but a lighthouse. Patrick stood behind Anna as she stared up at her work, hands folded tightly in front of her. "You did this," he said. Anna shook her head slowly. "We did." And around them, the world kept moving. Snow still fell, people still hurried, but something subtle had shifted like the tide pulling toward a new shoreline. Because sometimes, justice doesn't arrive with thunder. Sometimes, it comes wrapped in paper and pencil. Sometimes, it walks in small shoes and asks big questions. Sometimes, it's a little black girl named Anna who dared to believe that she mattered and made everyone else believe it, too. Anna had never been inside City Hall before. The hallways were quiet, echoing with old marble and polished wood. The ceilings arched so high she felt like she was walking through a church, not a government building. Her little hand stayed tucked inside Evelyn's as they followed a young aide through corridors and past doors marked Press, Council Chambers, and Mayor's Office. "They invited us?" Anna whispered. Evelyn gave her hand a light squeeze. "They didn't just invite us, baby. They asked for our help." They arrived at a modest room lined with long tables and chairs where folders and pens had already been set out. At the far end, Mayor Sharon Delano stood speaking to several community leaders, including Malcolm and Lindsay. When she spotted Anna and Evelyn, her face lit up. "Right on time," Sharon said, walking over. "Welcome, both of you." Evelyn nodded politely. "We're honored. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do," Anna admitted, her voice quiet. "You're supposed to be heard," the mayor said. "That's what this table is for." They sat near the end of the table while the room filled. Journalists waited outside, barred from entering. This wasn't a press event. This was the beginning of something more deliberate: a civic redesign committee tasked with shaping the city's response to child welfare, education gaps, and housing disparities. Patrick arrived moments later. He nodded at Anna, then leaned in to whisper something that made her smile. The mayor opened the session. "This table is long overdue. For too long, we've listened only to the loudest voices, not the truest. We're here to change that. Today, we listen to the people who live the reality we're trying to fix." She gestured toward Anna. "Anna Carter has graciously agreed to share her vision." Anna blinked, then slowly stood, holding a folder close to her chest. Her knees shook. Her voice trembled. But when she looked up and saw Evelyn, Patrick, and Malcolm watching her, not with pressure, but with love, she found her breath. She began, "I'm not a politician or a teacher," she said. "But I know what it feels like to be cold, hungry, and scared. I know what it's like when people talk over you instead of to you." She opened her folder and pulled out a drawing. "This is what I think a school should look like." She walked to the whiteboard and pinned the paper. It showed a building surrounded by green space, with benches made from recycled wood, open windows, and solar panels on the roof. Inside were classrooms with round tables, reading corners, and art studios. There's a room for parents who want to help but don't have childcare. There's a garden, and a kitchen that feeds everyone, not just kids with money. She turned to the room. Because hunger doesn't wear a name tag. The room was silent. Then Malcolm spoke, his voice thick with pride. "Amen to that." Lindsay nodded slowly. "We can make this happen, not just talk actual blueprints." The mayor smiled. "We'll start with one school, a pilot. If it works, we replicate it." As the meeting continued, Anna returned to her seat. She sat taller now, her shoulders square. Later, while most of the committee lingered over coffee and small talk, Patrick stepped aside with Evelyn. "She's not just smart," he said. "She's ready." Evelyn folded her arms. "She's still a child. But yes, she's becoming someone the world needs." "Would you consider joining the foundation board?" Patrick asked. "Not as a figurehead, as a partner. Help us keep it grounded." Evelyn blinked. "Me? You're the reason this all started," he said. "You stood your ground when the world tried to scare you into silence." Evelyn smiled slowly. "All right then, but I speak my mind." "That's the point," Patrick said, chuckling. That evening, Anna and Evelyn walked home together through the still falling snow. Christmas lights twinkled from windows. A car drove by slowly, music playing low Nat King Cole's The Christmas Song. Anna sang along under her breath, not realizing Evelyn was listening. When they reached their building, Evelyn stopped at the front step and looked out over the block. "Feels different, doesn't it?" she said. Anna looked up. "The city?" "No," Evelyn said. You changed something in it." Anna tilted her head, thinking. Then she smiled. "I didn't do it alone." Evelyn wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "No. But you made people believe it could be done." As they went inside, the warmth hit them like a blanket. The radiator hummed. The air smelled like cinnamon and something baking 2 floors down. Normal. Home. But something had shifted. A girl once made invisible had taken a seat at the table. And not just any table, the one where decisions were made. And as she took off her boots and curled up on the couch, Anna Carter, age 11, knew something she hadn't known a year ago. She mattered. And now, the city knew it too. In the weeks that followed, the city seemed to breathe differently. Newspapers filled their front pages with the latest developments from the Anna Project. Neighborhood groups began holding forums not to complain, but to collaborate. It felt like something real was blooming slowly, but undeniably. But progress rarely arrives unchallenged. Patrick stood in his office overlooking the city, fingers tapping lightly against the window pane. Snow had given way to icy drizzle, the kind that turned sidewalks slick and drivers cautious. Across the street, he could see the framework of the first Anna Project school taking shape. Beams were going up. Workers moved steadily despite the cold. He should have felt triumphant, but he didn't. Lindsay entered, holding her phone. Her expression was tight. "They're trying again," she said. Patrick turned. "Hallwell?" She nodded. "He's not working alone this time. 2 other council members have signed on to a proposal to freeze all public-private development contracts pending a thorough ethics audit. They're saying you've created a shadow city government." Patrick scoffed. "Of course they are. The system never fights fair when it starts losing control. They're framing it as a battle for transparency, saying the public doesn't want billionaires deciding what schools look like." Patrick crossed the room to his desk. "And what does the public say?" Lindsay paused. "They're divided, half inspired, half suspicious. Then we need to remind them who this is for." That evening, at the community center on Jefferson Avenue, Evelyn sat on a folding chair beside Reverend Malcolm as the town hall began. Anna was seated near the front, flanked by her teachers and classmates. The crowd filled the room, wall-to-wall parents, grandparents, young couples, city officials, reporters, and even a few protesters holding signs that read, "Keep democracy public." Patrick stepped up to the mic. The room quieted. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," he began. "There's been talk rumors, headlines, half-truths about what we're building." He gestured toward the back wall, where a large projection showed renderings of the future school. Open spaces, sunlit classrooms, wheelchair, accessible gardens, solar panels lining the roof. "This isn't a luxury campus. It's not a tax write-off. It's a promise, one child at a time." He paused. "But yes, I'm wealthy. Yes, I have influence. And yes, I've used both, not to silence voices, but to amplify them." He looked toward Anna. She reminded me that the smallest voices often hold the greatest wisdom. A woman from the back row stood up. She looked tired, but curious. "What happens if this project fails?" Patrick didn't flinch. "Then I'll be the first to own it, and the first to learn from it. But doing nothing, waiting for bureaucracy to find its courage, that's the failure we've accepted for too long." There was a murmur of agreement through the crowd. Then another voice, sharp, male. "What makes you think you know what our kids need?" Before Patrick could respond, Evelyn rose slowly. "I'll tell you what he knows," she said, voice strong and clear. "He knows how to listen." The crowd turned. He listened when no one else did. When CPS showed up at my door, when the press twisted my granddaughter into a headline, he listened not with pity, but respect. She turned to the man. "Have you?" Silence. Patrick stepped aside. "We're not building saviors. We're building stewards, and every one of you has a seat at that table." Applause rippled through the room. Anna sat still, her eyes wide not with fear, but with understanding. The kind of understanding that comes when you see your world begin to shift, when you realize your story is bigger than just yours. Afterward, as the room emptied, Malcolm approached Anna. "You did something rare," he said softly. "I didn't do anything tonight," she replied. He smiled. "Exactly. You didn't need to. Sometimes, the most powerful voice is the one that echoes even when silent." Later that night, Evelyn sat on the fire escape outside their apartment. The city stretched before her, still half-lit, still restless. Patrick joined her, holding 2 mugs of tea. "They'll keep pushing," he said. "I know," she replied. "But they can't unbuild this," he added. Evelyn took the mug, blew on the steam. "Number, because it's not just cement, it's belief." And down the hall, Anna slept soundly, her notebook on the pillow beside her. On the open page was a sketch of the future library, windows wide, walls lined with stories, and in the center, a statue. Not of Patrick, not of Evelyn, but of a girl reaching upward, her hand open to lift others behind her. Because that's what legacy is, not a monument to self, but a hand left behind to pull the next soul forward. And in the quiet hum of the night, the storm brewing in the city's politics felt distant, because the real battle, the one of hearts and hope, was already being won. Snow fell gently that morning, soft and slow, like the sky was taking a deep breath after a long battle. On the corner of Lenox and 112th, the fence around the construction site had been removed. In its place stood the Anna Carter Learning Center. Its bricks still new, its glass windows gleaming in the winter sun. But it wasn't just a school. It was a message, a lighthouse. The grand opening was modest by most standards. No confetti, no pop stars. Just folding chairs set out in rows, a podium borrowed from City Hall, and a crowd bundled in coats, holding paper cups of hot cocoa, families, neighbors, city workers, and children, lots of them. Anna stood backstage, holding Evelyn's hand. She wore a navy blue coat with silver buttons and her hair in 2 neat braids. Around her neck hung a small pendant shaped like a paintbrush, Patrick's gift, hand-carved from oak, with Claire's initials etched on the back. Evelyn adjusted Anna's collar, her voice warm. "You ready, baby?" Anna took a deep breath. "I think so." On stage, Mayor Delano took the mic. 2 years ago, she began. This was an empty lot. Now it's a school, a garden, a beacon. But more than that, it's proof that when we listen to the people who live the stories, not just read them in headlines, we build better. The crowd clapped. Delano smiled and looked toward the side curtain. And now, the young visionary who helped us reimagine what school could mean, not just a place of learning, but of belonging. Please welcome Anna Carter. Applause rose as Anna stepped forward, small but steady. The wind played gently with her braids. She cleared her throat at the microphone. "I'm not a teacher, or a mayor, or anyone special, really," she began. "I'm just someone who was cold one winter and asked for a hug." A soft laugh spread through the crowd, and that hug changed everything. Not because it fixed things, but because it made someone see me. And when someone sees you, really sees you, you start to believe you matter. She pulled a folded drawing from her coat pocket and held it up. It was one of her earliest sketches. A lighthouse standing alone in a storm, light cutting through the dark. This is what I wanted this school to be. A light when it's dark. A place where kids can come in from the storm. She paused, her voice catching. And this school, it's not just mine. It's yours. It belongs to every kid who was told they didn't belong. Every grandma who stood tall when others looked away. Every man who chose kindness over power. It belongs to the city we're still becoming. The applause was thunderous. Backstage, Patrick wiped his eyes. Malcolm clapped a hand on his shoulder. "You built a building," Malcolm said. "She built a movement." After the ceremony, the building opened its doors. Children explored the classrooms with wide eyes, stouching the art supplies, flipping through books, racing through the indoor greenhouse. Parents marveled at the open design, the warmth of the space, the walls filled with student art already pinned with pride. Evelyn wandered into the kitchen, where volunteers were preparing meals for the weekend backpack program, meals kids could take home to families who needed them. "This," one mother said to her, "this is more than food, it's dignity." Outside, Patrick stood beneath the statue in the courtyard. It had been unveiled quietly that morning, a bronze figure of a young girl with her hand outstretched, eyes lifted toward the sky. At her feet was a plaque that read, "To those who dared to believe they belonged." Anna came up beside him. Do you think people will remember all this? She asked. Patrick looked down at her. They'll remember what it made them feel. That's what lasts. She nodded slowly. I think I want to design more. Not just schools. Maybe parks. Hospitals. Things that help. You will, he said, and they'll be better because of you. As evening settled and the crowds dispersed, the lights of the school remained on. Inside, soft music played on the intercom, a jazz piece Evelyn loved. The rooms felt alive, even empty, like they were waiting for stories. Anna and Evelyn stood by the entrance, watching snow fall beneath the streetlights. Evelyn whispered, "You did good, baby." Anna leaned her head against her shoulder. From across the street, Malcolm watched with a quiet smile. Patrick stood beside him. "This isn't an ending," Malcolm said. "No," Patrick agreed. "It's chapter 1 of whatever comes next." And whatever came next, they were ready. Because sometimes, the most radical thing you can do isn't to shout louder. Sometimes, it's to leave the light on, so someone else can find their way home. The story of Anna Carter reminds us that true change begins not with power or wealth, but with compassion, courage, and the willingness to listen. It teaches us that even the smallest voice, when heard, can shift the course of a city. More than a tale of injustice overcome, it's a reminder that dignity, hope, and community must be built not just with bricks and policy, but with heart. And when we choose to see one another fully, we don't just create schools or systems, we create belonging.